It's late 1944. Allied forces are advancing up the Italian peninsula, but stiff German resistance around the new Gothic line is making progress slow and costly. Covert cells of Italian resistance under the CLN wreak havoc in the Axis rear, causing casualties, slowing supplies, and diverting significant manpower away from the front, among them the men of the infamous 16th SS Panzer Grenadiers. In preparation for a renewed offensive against the Gothic line, small American forces have infiltrated behind German lines, tasked with joining the partisans in diversionary attacks against the enemy rear. The village of Santo Poco, destroyed by the intense fighting in the area, is of critical importance to the German cause, with 4 major roads converging in and around the ruined town. In particular routes 18 and 12, the most critical supply routes to the front line. The loss of these routes would be a disaster for the Gothic line defenses, and the Allies know this all too well. As morning dawns, a small American patrol approaches the crossroads from the north, tasked with linking up with a band of partisans near Santo Poco and preventing the movement of enemy troops along routes 12 and 18. The resistance has been dangerously low on ammunition for some time, but word of a hidden cache of weapons in the graveyard of the village prompts a search of the ruins before the meet-up. Despite German patrols in the area, the cache is found and recovered, and the resupplied partisans make their way to the rendezvous, and the joint force, collectively under the command of the American 5th Army, moves to establish a roadblock on Route 12. The German 14th Panzer Corps is retreating in the direction of Rimini, and all measures must be taken to ensure they do not pass. The 16th SS, meanwhile, is tasked with clearing the way in advance of the retreating panzers, ensuring nothing, and no one, gets in the way. A radio intercept informs the Allies that a German engineer vehicle was bombed and abandoned along Route 18 to the west. Hoping to salvage some of the equipment, a small American patrol is sent out to investigate. The patrol advances along Route 18, searching for the abandoned vehicle, but suddenly runs into a German ambush. They stage a fighting retreat back down Route 18, pursued closely by the German troops, coincidentally finding the vehicle they had somehow missed on the way in. Under fire, the patrol grabs a handful of German anti-tank mines and returns to the roadblock intact. Upon arrival, the ambushed patrol warns about the large German force now approaching from the west, and the defense is readied. The first fighting occurs along the roadway to the south, on the Allied left flank. The partisans stationed at the roadblock there, supported by the machine gun mounted on the weapons carrier, beats back repeated waves of Germans, inflicting heavy casualties. Realizing their attack can't break through the roadblock directly, the Germans shift their focus further north, hoping to outflank the partisans. They suddenly find themselves under fire from the American troops they did not know were there, and after sustaining heavy casualties, are forced to retreat back to the west. Their plans thwarted on Route 12, the Germans turn their attention to Route 18. Lacking the troops to properly defend both routes against attack, the Allies decide to destroy Route 18 and deny its use to the enemy entirely. The partisans move westward, pursuing the German forces, while the Americans mount up and follow Route 3 to the rendezvous on Route 18. In the weeks preceding, German movement along Route 18 had attracted heavy shell fire from American artillery, and locals report large amounts of unexploded ordnance still in the fields nearby. While the American troops are moving, the partisans recover one of these shells and go to work rigging it to blow. The charge is placed on the road and its timer set for 30 minutes, enough time to escape the blast zone, after which the road would be rendered useless to German traffic. But the SS troops had caught wind of this move, and in no time at all a pitched battle over the time bomb is being waged, the timer counting down all the while. The Germans make numerous attempts to reach the bomb and disable it, their only hope of saving their most important lifeline, and after heavy fighting begin to make headway. Allied casualties are heavy, and the Germans draw ever closer, but it is too little too late. At the last minute the Allies pull out of the vicinity, and the explosion rocks the area, cratering the supply route exactly as planned. The Germans fall back, thwarted once more, but far from ready to give up. The forces retreating to Rimini earlier in the day, while halted, brought crucial aid to the frustrated 16th SS troops. One vehicle in the convoy, towing a small artillery piece, was lost in the fighting, but the gun was recovered by the German troops. Even as the fighting on Route 18 is still underway, the artillery piece is being prepared for retaliation. Only minutes after the detonation of the time bomb, the first shells begin to fall on the Allied troops. Under the cover of a light fog, made thicker by the smoke produced by every shot of the cannon, the Allies advanced toward the hilltop German position, determined to eliminate the new threat. The German troops, well entrenched behind a horseshoe of thick dirt embankments, hold a dominating position on the high ground overlooking the gully through which the Allies advance. Heavy fighting ensues as the Allies struggle to make headway. The weapons carrier moves up the road, laying down heavy suppressing fire as the infantry make their assault. A surprise attack on the German left by American soldiers is halted at the last second at point-blank range, resulting in heavy casualties. But the distraction is enough to allow the partisans to make their own attack. Charging through the cannon's smoke, the partisans rush the embankment, throwing grenades into the encampment and knocking the gun out of action. Allied casualties are very heavy, but the Germans are forced to abandon the position. A heavy downpour ensues, deterring any further action by either side, and each retires to mark the end of the day's fighting. Though German resistance was stiff, the Allies successfully denied use of routes 12 and 18 to their enemy, thereby weakening Axis strength in the area dramatically. But the fighting around Santo Poco has only just begun. As the combatants rise from a tense night of sleep on Saturday morning, they are greeted with a warm bright sky, and a changing tactical situation at the front. Overnight, the Germans have fallen back from the hilltop position they had occupied the night before, moving further south in a bid to outflank the Allied forces along the equally vital Route 30. The Allies, tipped off about this change, leave their positions defending the captured hilltop and move south in pursuit. At 0800, however, they receive another surprise in the form of a German Storch reconnaissance plane shot down nearby. The pilot, who was seen parachuting to safety from his doomed aircraft, is believed by Allied intelligence to be in possession of important documents regarding the new German defensive line being prepared further north. The Allies begin an immediate search for the downed airman, who is believed to have landed in this general area. In short order, the pilot is discovered hiding in a bush and taken prisoner. However, his leg had been broken on landing, and he is in no position to move on his own. While they wait for the weapons carrier to arrive and take the prisoner away, the Americans set up a defense. Sure enough, the Germans arrive only minutes later, and an intense firefight erupts. The American truck arrives at last and the wounded prisoner is loaded, but the Germans continue to advance with renewed vigor. Under heavy fire, the Allies retreat down the road, prisoner in hand, to a new position. The pilot is taken away by a band of partisans, eager to get the information they seek. The Germans pursue, but after a brief skirmish in the trees north of the road junction they withdraw to regroup. However, the SS troops quickly realize the precarious position the Allies are in, and move to establish a roadblock on Route 30 to pin the enemy in place. The Allies are aware of this move, however, and immediately seize the initiative. While the partisans launch a diversionary attack further north, the Americans move into the dense woods to the south of Route 30, setting up a mortar in a ditch 100 meters from the German position. While the partisans hold the German attention, the American mortar begins pounding the roadblock, dealing immense damage to the defending troops. The Germans begin probing attacks into the woods, trying desperately to find and silence the mortar before it can do more damage. As they advance through the dense foliage, however, they are ambushed by the American troops, forcing a retreat with heavy casualties. Attempts by the Allies to pursue the Germans are met with stiff resistance, and both sides fall back to lick their wounds. An hour of uneasy calm follows the bloody engagement. Shortly after noon, however, the quiet is broken by the sound of an engine approaching down Route 30. The Germans, having mistaken the American withdrawal as a full retreat northward, had gone about consolidating their position under the false assumption of victory. The SS commander, wanting to ensure compliance among the civilian population, called for a meeting with the head of a nearby village in the hopes of obtaining information on the partisans operating in the area. The commander, embarked in a vehicle with 3 of his staff, rolls down the road, unaware of the looming threat lurking in the trees ahead. In seconds, the car is peppered by a hail of gunfire from the woods. Though the Americans had hoped to take the commander prisoner, the partisans are far less forgiving. The driver, radio man, and commander are all killed instantly, though the 4th occupant, armed only with a pistol, escaped and flees into the trees east of the road, though he is pursued and captured shortly. The man is found to be the photographer for the unit, and important film is recovered from his camera for Allied intelligence. Expectedly, word spreads quickly about the disappearance of the SS commander. Rested, reinforced, and tired of the Allied presence in the area, the German troops launch a major assault. Their position untenable, the Allies retreat southward, but discover quickly that this German attack is far larger and more concentrated than any other faced thus far. They see no other choice but to dig in and make a final stand. They make their way to a ruined Roman amphitheater to the south, a former partisan base, and begin entrenching there. The Germans move at once southward, encircling the amphitheater and launching simultaneous assaults on all sides as part of the final climactic battle. A handful of Americans in woods to the east hold long enough to allow Allied soldiers to fall back within the structure, but there is little more they can do. The partisans situated in the upper stands fall quickly, the dense woods to the west allowing the Germans to launch a surprise attack and overwhelm the thin defenses. The German troops, now in possession of the high ground in the stands, open fire on the exposed Allied troops below, and in minutes the battle is over. The Allied force is completely demolished in the fight for the amphitheater, bringing to an end their two-day reign of terror behind German lines. But their sacrifice is not in vain, and the damage they cause is sufficient to deal a major blow to German strength in the area. It won't be long before the Gothic line will fall.